Okay, so where we got left off last time. So sorry about that, we got cut off. With our video, we were talking about using Cramer's rule to solve systems linear equations. So we had this system. We put our coefficients into a matrix, found our determinant. Okay, so this is going to be our denominator for x and y. So for x, we're going to come over here, take our solutions, put them in our x column, take the y's, put them in the y column. So for x, we put our solutions in the x column. When we have y's, we're going to put them in the y column. Find our determinant. So I've got I've got 8 minus a negative 153, a plus, so I get 161 over 23. So if I divide those, it's going to give me, what pen was I using? Well, I think I walked off with it. Let me go find it real quick. Okay, so it gives me 7. There we go. Let's get a pen that works. All right, so let's find y. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to put our x's in the first column, so 2, 5, and we're going to put our solutions in our y column. So I've got 251, and I'm going to divide by 23. So that's going to give me 102 minus 10. And that is over 23, 102. It's going to give me 92 divided by 23. And that's going to give me 4. So my answer is 7, 4. And we could always check that. We could always plug it in and say it's 14 minus 12 is 2, 35 plus 16, give me 51. So it works. All right, so we can also find the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, so let's talk about how we would do that. So let's get a 3 by 3 matrix. So I have 3, 0, 0. Actually, let me do this one. So I was going to do 3, 0, 0 across the top. Not that it really matters. 2, 1, negative 5. 2, 5, negative 1. Okay, so to find the determinant, we're basically doing the same thing. We're going to multiply down our diagonals and then subtract multiplying up our diagonals. So to make it easier, we're going to rewrite the first 2 rows. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply down this diagonal, and that's going to give me a negative 3. Multiply down this diagonal, so I've got 0, negative 5, 2. That's going to give me a 0. Multiply down this diagonal, so I've got 0, 2, 5. So that's going to give me 10 times 0 is 0. Okay, and then we're going to subtract, and we're going to multiply up our diagonals. So we start here at this corner, so that's going to give me 0. I've got 5 times negative 5 times 3. So it's negative 25 times 3 would be negative 75. And then here I've got negative 1, 2, 0. So that's going to give me a 0. So I've got negative 3 minus a negative 75. So that's going to give me 72 as an answer. Okay, and that would be my determinant. Now we can use Cramer's rule the same way with the 3 by 3. So say I have this matrix. So I've got x plus y plus z equals 0. And then I've got 2x minus y plus z equals negative 1. And I've got negative x plus 3y minus z equals negative 8. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is find our coefficient matrix, and that's going to be our denominator for all of them. So we're going to treat these the exact same way we treated the others. So I've got 1, 1, 1, 2, negative 1, 1, negative 1, 3, negative 1. So I'm going to rewrite the first 2 columns. 1, 2, negative 1. 1, negative 1, 3. So I'm going to multiply down the diagonal. So that's going to give me 1. Got 1 times 2, wait, no. right here. So I multiply down this diagonal. So I multiply down this one. So I've got 1, 1, negative 1. So it's a minus 1. And then here, start here. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So it's going to give me a 6. And I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to go up. So I've got 1. That's going to give me negative 1 times what is positive 1. And then I've got 3 times 1 is 3. And then negative 1 times 2 times this. So it's going to be negative 2. So it's going to give me negative 5. Nope, sorry, it's positive 5. Minus, let me slide that over. So it's 4, so it's a 2. So it gives me 3. Okay? Is that right? Nope, that's not right. I've got a 1 there. So this is going to give me a 6 minus 2 gives me 4. I couldn't read my own handwriting. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is find x. So I'm going to take my solutions and replace the x column. So my first column is going to be 0, negative 1, negative 8. And then I'm just going to copy down the next 2 rows. So I've got 1, negative 1, 3. And then 1, 1, negative 1. So I'm going to and then we're going to divide by 4. So I'm going to rewrite the first 2 columns. Okay, so we're going to multiply down this diagonal, so that's 0. Multiply that, it's going to give me negative 8. So I've got negative 8. 1, negative 1, 3, so it's negative 3. Subtract, multiply up. So negative 8 times negative 1 times 1 is positive 8. 3 times 1 times 0 is going to give me a 0. And then negative 1 times negative 1 times 1 is going to give me a plus 1. Okay, and I'm going to divide all this by 4. So 8 is negative 11 minus 8. Negative 11 minus 8, what is that? Negative, plus 1. Did I do something wrong? Yeah. 8 plus 1, I've got to distribute my negative. So it is negative 20. I was like, something's wrong here. Okay, so this gives me negative 5. That's my answer. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing with y. So instead of putting them in the x column, so I'm going to leave my x column the way it is. I'm going to put my solutions in my y column. So if I'm in y, my solutions go in my y column. And I leave everything else the same. Okay, so then I rewrite my first 2 columns. And we're going to divide by my 4. Okay, so that's going to give me positive 1. So I've got 0. So if I've got a 0 in the row in the diagonal at any point, it's just going to give me 0. So 1, 2, so that's negative 16. Minus, if I'm going up, that's going to give me a 1. That's going to give me a negative 8. And that's going to give me a 0. Divide all that by 4. So if I add these together, it's going to give me negative 15. It's going to give me negative 7. So it's going to give me negative 8 over 4. So I get negative 2. Okay. Now I can do the same thing with z. Or if I wanted to, I could plug it back in up here. So I know that x plus y plus z equals 0. So if x is negative 5 and y is negative 2, so let me slide this up, I can solve for z. Or I can use Cramer's method, either way. So I've got negative 7 plus z equals 0, so z would have to be 7. 7. Okay, or I could set it up. I'll show you how to set it up. Or I could set it up and say we're going to use the first 2 columns as they were. Negative 3. And then plug in our solutions for the last column. And divide by 4. And that should also give me 7. Okay, we'd rewrite the first 2 columns and do the same thing. Okay, the last thing in this section is we're talking about area. Okay, if we have any triangle, we can find the area using a matrix if we know our endpoints. So if we could graph it and find our vertices, say we've got x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. If I've got any three vertices, so let's see, say I graph one, say this point, and this point. Okay, I could find the area of that triangle without having to try and find my base and my height and all that. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. So what we could do is set it up and find our determinant. So I'm going to say 1 plus or minus 1/2. And I'm going to write my point. So I've got x1, y1, and then I'm going to put a 1. My last column is going to be 1s all the way down. x2, y2, 1. x3, y3, 1. Okay? And then we're going to take half of it. Now this plus or minus, we want our area to be positive. So what that means is if this matrix gives me a negative number, I'm just going to multiply it by positive. Okay? So we're just going to basically force it to be positive. So say I have 3 points. I've got 3, and I wrote a 5. So I've got a 3, negative 5. I've got a 2, 6. And I've got negative 3, 5. Okay, so my area for this is going to be plus or minus 1/2. I'm going to say 3, negative 5, 1. We always put 1s in that last column. 2, 6, 1. So put our x's in one column, got our y column, and then 1s. And now we're just going to find our determinant. So we've got plus or minus 1/2. I'm going to put a big bracket here. So let's go ahead and rewrite. I'm going to write in here small. Rewrite those first 2 columns. 6, 5. Okay. So I've got 3 times 6 times 1 is going to give me 18. So my next row, I've got negative 5, 1, negative 3. So it's going to give me a positive 15. And I've got 1, 2, 5. That's going to give me a 10. And then we're going to subtract, slide this over, and go, so we went down this way, so we're going to subtract and go up. So I've got negative 3, 6, 1, so it's negative 18. The next one I've got 5, 1, 3, so it's 15. And this last one I've got 1, 2, 5, so it's negative 10. So if we subtract these, so let's see, I've got plus or minus 1/2. My first one is 25, 35, 38. No. That's 33, 43. Let's see if I can add. Subtract, and here, that's going to give me negative 28 plus 15. This is negative 13, so it's going to give me a plus 13.